All right, we're live. Here we are again for one of our 76 Capital Leadership Series events. Really excited tonight to welcome the president and co-founder of ShotTracker, Davion Ross, to our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Davion, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. You know what? It's great to have you, and it's been really exciting for us at 76 Capital and my whole team, John and Chad and James and Scott and Krista and Crystal. I mean, we've been really enjoying these series. This is actually our sixth one that we've done so far. So welcome to the team. And we've talked to CJ at Diamond Kinetics. We've talked with Matt Holt at US Integrity. We've talked with Tal Brody. We went over to Israel to meet and talk with the Michael Jordan of Israeli basketball. We had, Ari Evans from Maestro. And earlier this week, we had Brian Musburger before the draft. I'm saying earlier last week, I should say. These days keep running all in together. We'll talk about that in a second. Brian is the CEO of Davion, and he came on and talked about right before the draft all the different betting implications that were going on with the draft, and that was really interesting, as well as telling the story of Davion. And that's what we're going to do tonight. With the co-founder and president of ShotTracker, Davion Ross. We want to hear your story. We want to hear about all the things that you've done in your life to get you where you are. And so before we get started, I'll read a little bit of your bio, just a touch to give some people a little bit of context, and then I really want to hear it from you. I mean, Davion's been in the business world and the technology world for over 20 years now. As I said earlier, he's the co-founder and president of ShotTracker. And what ShotTracker is a sensor-based technology that provides statistics and analytics for practice and games in basketball. And Davion will really go into all of that and explain that. Davion's been involved in another company that he sold. He worked for, prior to starting his last company, he worked for two different companies, one of which was Sprint. And I want to hear also about your background of how you came here to the U.S., as well as hearing about, how that all worked and growing up in Trinidad. So really, really excited to have you on the show. And Davion, again, thanks for coming.
Pleasure's mine, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to chat. And
well, let's kick this off. Let's kick it off with, again, your story. Your story of how you got here to the United States. I'd love to share that, and maybe you could tell your kids this story as well. I'm sure they've heard it a few times, huh?
Yeah, maybe a couple times. So I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, born and raised. Graduated high school at like 15, and started to do was going to University of Cambridge, doing advanced levels back in Trinidad. And after that was a 2-year program. I started to play basketball at 15 also. So I'd just been starting to get basketball, but I was, tall, long, athletic, can shoot it. Those are good pieces of the puzzle to put together, although I'd never played. But I started to play basketball, picked it up, started to train with the National Under-19 team back in the day, long time ago. And I was fortunate that someone was in Trinidad on a mission trip and saw me play and was able to call back to college and say, hey, you guys should check out this kid. He's, 6'7", athletic, could shoot it. And, I got on the phone with the coaches after. It took, that was back in the day, right? So there was no cell phones. I mean, literally the coach was trying to call me, I want to say, for about 3 to 4 weeks. And we just miss each other. You call the home phone, I'm not home. I call back, he's not at the office. So we finally set up a time, was able to connect. I was like, I'm staying home tonight. Just call me anytime tonight. And he offered me a full ride to go play at Benedictine College in Kansas. And, smaller school, but great academic school, great program, basketball program. So I literally packed up at 17, left Trinidad and Tobago and came to the U.S. Had never been to the college, had only talked to the coach, and I grew up in a house of, my parents, and I had two brothers and one sister. I was the eldest. And my parents were like really strict on books. So they heard free school, and it was like, I came home and my bags were packed for me. Like, yo, we don't have to pay for school. Oh, you're out. We'll see you when we see you, So just really big about academics, and, love the idea. Big in sports too, but the academics always came first. So I came out here to Kansas. I remember landing in Kansas City, and they sent this guy to pick me up. Didn't even know him, and driving about an hour out to Atchison, Kansas. And that's how I got to the U.S. And it's history. Had a great basketball career. Studied computer science and math, and then also a minor in business. And I went to school there for 4 years. As I said, I had a good career. I had some opportunities to go play overseas, but being a foreigner, it was 2000 when I graduated. So I started to do interviews because as a computer science major back then, there was quite a bit of opportunity. I mean, I'd interviewed at Xerox in Rochester, New York, Sprint, and a couple other companies. And, I got an offer, back in, I said, you graduated in May, back in October, I had an offer to take an engineering job. So I took that job. I mean, the big thing for me was, hey, we're going to pay for your green card, which, that was enough for me. So I decided not to go play, overseas, but take that job. And, so I did that for several years, was a tech lead at Sprint, led up some of their applications. Then my manager and director, they started a company, literally quit Friday, called me Monday, had lunch Wednesday. I quit Friday and go over and start this company, which they later, after about several years, sold to a public company. And then I did a startup by the name of Digital Sports Ventures, which was in the sports world, but I negotiated all the rights for video for the top 7 BCS conferences. It was called Digital Sports Ventures. And in the peak, we syndicated, this was back in, 2007. So, 1.5 million video streams a day was a big deal. Now people are doing that by the hour.
Well, that's like this stream right now, right? I mean, I think we got at least that many people looking at this, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least. With more joining every minute. The waiting room is full. But yeah, so we, just really fortunate to build that company, get a foray into sports and tech, which are two things that I'm really passionate about. And then, was able to start being one of the founders of ShotTracker, and here we are today.
Yeah, well, I think, look, the journey is unbelievable. What you've been able to do so far, and then, you came on to this idea, you and Bruce at ShotTracker, and had this idea, which was so intriguing when I met you. But you were already a couple of years into this thing, right?
Yeah, we had already evolved, right? So the story is we started off like, Bruce reached out to me. He was trying to work out with his kid in the back and was like, how do you track? Now, one of the things I left out is that, I was a little bit of a shooter back in college, but I used to have to. Oh yeah. Go check the stats. I think I still got my #1 ranking my senior year. But,
nice.
I was putting up 500 to 1,000 shots a day, because I stayed on campus. I didn't go back to Trinidad because I know I wasn't going to get any workouts done there.
Wait, I got to stop you for a second. So I hear the ball bouncing outside of my house, and my son's out there shooting. So you said 500, I got to write this down, 500 to 1,000 shots a day. Yeah, he does that as well as all my nephews, Dylan, Jake, and Daniel. Those guys, like I tell them all the time, they got to shoot. And they say I sound like, my dad, who used to always tell them, you got to play more, but that's what it's all about, right? I mean, whether it's basketball or in business, you got to just
you got to get your reps up. I mean, no matter what it is. I mean, you can use non-sports related things, right? You have to be, it's got to come natural. It's got to be comfortable. And that's one of the things that iterations and reps give you, right? Like, when you get into a shot, you practice this shot like every kid in the backyard has 5, 4, 3. I mean, every kid has done that, right? And getting those reps is important. So when you actually get into the game, whether that's on the court, on the field, in the boardroom, it's like, it's natural. And you don't even have to think about it. Because when we think, that's when we make mistakes, right? You want it to be so organic and so natural. I mean, when I'm doing presentations, I'm running through those presentations like I know the material at like the back of my hand. And I've gone through so many iterations. I don't even have to think about it. I see the slide and I know what I need to say. So, I mean, reps is everything, man. And it doesn't only apply to sports, but it's about consistency and reps. And that was something that I was able to do being an engineer. That's your thing, right? So, yeah, and it started off like that. And he was like, "Hey, what did you do?" And I said, "Look, I used to track in a book. I didn't have technology back then to do it. So we started off really as a consumer product for the backyard, but then made that transition when we saw what's going on in the market. And there's this whole phenomenon about, hey, kids are playing so many games, not enough reps, not enough shooting, not enough backyard time, just perfecting your shot." And we saw that dynamic, and we decided to make the change. So by the time I think we were presenting at the, Steph Curry and Iggy had invited us to the Players Summit, and that's where we met, for the first time. But we had already made the transition to make this more of a, empowering and training the teams, and then being able to use the data that we can make available to broadcasters and fans, and really changing the whole level of engagement.
Well, what was so intriguing to me, and I mean, I'll never forget that time in San Francisco when we met, and you stepped on the stage, and not only did you have Steph Curry and Andre Iguodala, but it was a small room, but there were NBA players like crazy in that room. There were other execs, but there was a lot of guys in that room. And the one thing I remember you talking about is how you were able to do something really hard, and the really hard thing was to be able to actually install a sensor inside of a basketball.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget that, because, and you said, well, like, it's not just, and then the one point that I'd love for you to talk about now is it's not just one brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, it's a little bit of rocket science. And, at this time, anytime I get in these situations, I like to give credit to our team. We have a group of incredible individuals. So like, I may be the face here and you're seeing me, but just know that, I mean, I got an army behind me that are, well-equipped, intelligent, smart, and, smarter than me. So, I mean, we got a lot of incredibly smart guys who, could just solve these rocket science types of problems. So, so it's not, so in the NBA, they use one ball, right? But what people don't understand is that in college, let's say KU, for instance. So KU is an Adidas sponsored school, but they use Wilson basketball because Wilson is the basketball of the NCAA, right? So in March Madness, they use a Wilson ball. But KU, who plays in the Big 12, at home, they may use a Wilson ball. But when they're going to play against West Virginia, it's Spalding ball they're practicing in 2 days before. When they go play against Texas A&M, who is not in the Big 12 anymore, but they're an Adidas school. Texas Tech is Under Armour. Texas is Nike. And, so it's just this hodgepodge. So if you go in a locker room at a collegiate level, you're going to see literally 4 to 7 different basketball brands just sitting there. And then when KU is going to play Australia or Italy or wherever in their summer leagues, they got to use Molten.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just all across the board. So one of the biggest accomplishments is the fact that we can say that we have, our sensor in, pretty much every collegiate basketball that's used. And, that's a big accomplishment. And as I said, it's a testament to, the folks who sit in the ShotTracker offices. I'd say a little bit of luck. I got some black eyes through this process. We should make this like a drinking, so so we can really talk about it. But it was tough. It was challenging, and there was many times that you want to give up. I mean, imagine trying to get your sensor as a little startup in some of the largest brands, who are like, you're not even on their radar in regards to the things that they need to do. So I mean, that was like, a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer, a lot of begging, a lot of luck, and we're fortunate and really blessed to be in this position.
So once again, I just want to stop and thank Davion Ross for joining us here on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Davion is the president and co-founder of ShotTracker, and we've been having this really great conversation about how you were able to get a sensor in the ball. But why? Let's at this point right now, let's talk about why do you want a sensor in a basketball, and what that allows you to do, and what that allows ShotTracker to do that no other company in the world can do today.
Yeah. So So, there's people who have tracked players. One of the things that we try to really focus on, and when we think about our strengths, is a certain level of speed and accuracy, right? Being able to. So, if you think about it, when we blink, it's about 300 milliseconds, right? When we blink, and you know how fast we blink, right? If you think about it, we're able to capture data, do our algorithms, and move that data to the cloud from a location to the Amazon servers, back to whoever is your telecom carrier, back to your mobile device in 200 milliseconds, right? Like that is major. Again, you blink 300 milliseconds, and we're doing analysis on that data and bringing it back down in less than 300 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds or less, right? So
That's rocket science.
If what?
That's, as you were saying, that's like rocket science.
Yeah, that's a piece of the rocket science, right? So when we think about that's a lot of stuff they need. Now, why you want it in the ball is because what we do is we track players and we track the ball. So when you actually track players and ball, and we have the XYZ, or the location of both, within 2 to 4 centimeters, you could juxtapose that data, and then you could start inferring who has possession of the ball. When you have possession of the ball, you could start doing a bunch of different analytics. I could tell you, hey, Wayne has the ball, and every time Wayne has the ball and goes down the right side and he passes to Davion, he now has an assist. Or maybe Wayne passes it to Davion and Davion passes it to Chad. Wayne had the hockey assist. So when you have possession of the ball, you could start doing this analytics that would give you insight about what's going on in the game, all in real time. That can allow you to change the entire dynamics of what's going on in a basketball game. So that's one of the powers of having sensor, ball, and the full ecosystem.
And that data that you're collecting in less than a blink of an eye, that information is then shared where?
So right now, there's a couple, there's a few places it's shared. For one, I don't know if people noticed, but this was the first year. The 1920 season was the first season that the NCAA allowed technology on the bench, which that's a pretty big deal, right? I mean, the NCAA has been around for a while, and that was the first year, and we were very fortunate and feel very fortunate and blessed to be, to lead that charge as one of the first. What that meant is that they didn't allow the electronic transmission of data to the bench area. So you'd see people with whiteboards and that type of stuff, but you'd never see them with a tablet. Now we're able to push that data to the tablet to help coaches infer exactly what's going on, make great decisions. We also have been able to provide that data to the broadcast partner. And this is where speed and accuracy comes in, right? Because, a broadcast may be 6-7 seconds behind, and being able to do some of that stuff. We're actually slowing down our data, for that time frame, right? But we're able to do stuff with the broadcasters to really enhance that whole experience, whether it's data, whether it's who's on the court, all these things that they would traditionally do manually. Now we're just feeding them data that's going into their systems that they can use to really complement and enhance the experience. And then, of course, you're with our partnership with Lairfield, that takes the data to another level. And this is even more important because, when you're at the game and you're looking at the video board and you're looking at the game, if there's a big delta, you're not going to even partake of it. So that's where our speed comes in even more, where there's things that we can do to enhance that experience when you're on the video board and the game is going on. And that's something we get excited about because we think that there's going to be some really interesting things that we could do with fans while they're at the stadium. Not sure when that's going to happen next, but when they're at the stadium, and even when they're not at the stadium, whether it's a three-dimensional game cast or just enhanced experience from a gamification perspective to make it fun.
So you've been able to do some really revolutionary things. Again, getting data to the bench, to the coaches. I remember, I'll never forget it. It was in Kansas City with Chad, and we had Ralph Sampson with us at the game. And
Hall of Fame Classic, 2018.
2018, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the games, one of the USC assistant coaches, I think we were together when this happened. So one of the USC assistant coaches basically said, at the 4-minute timeout, they get that piece of paper with the stats, and they literally gave the Heisman to the person who was handing them the stats because they had it on their tablet.
Yeah, they know like literally what's going on game by game, how it's going, how we're scoring. I mean, look, we're going to try to push the envelope even more in 2020. Like, this year we got approved for stats. I mean, we're already working with our partners to ask for video incorporated in it. So now, not only are you going to be looking at the box score, but if Wayne is just drugging my team, he's got 9 threes and, he's 9 for 18. All 9 are coming on the right side. The other 9 are coming on the left side and he missed, right? And Davion's guarding him and Davion comes out. Coach is going to be like, look at what's happening. He's only going to the right? And see sequentially video of every one of those threes and without human intervention, without a delay. So like we're going to really try to push the envelope in regards to what we do and how we provide the data and the level of data that we provide on the bench. So we're excited about that.
Well, look, you're hitting on all the exciting things, right? I mean, at 76 Capital, we're all about looking, investing in entrepreneurs that are passionate about what they do, that are smart, that are nice. I mean, if you can't tell that Davion's a really good guy, then keep watching. We'll give you some more of that. But he also has this really big idea to really change the game and change the way things are done in basketball, whether that's on the collegiate level, in the NBA in the future, who knows, right? We'll try to move there, and just all the great things that you've been able to do. So really excited to have Davyeon Ross, the co-founder and president of ShotTracker, on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And Davion, one of the things I want to get into, and I think one of the great things that you've been able to do in the sports world is develop incredible relationships at all levels. And one of the relationships that I know that you cherished as much as any other relationship was your friendship with the late NBA Commissioner David Stern. I'd love to hear a little bit about your relationship with him, how you met, and what it was like to be truly his friend, not just one of these, I knew David Stern. Like you guys were friends, and that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's heavy in my heart, man. David was a close friend, and I remember when I got the news, it was rough because I literally used to talk to David at least 3 to 5 times a week. I mean, we'd be texting like 11 o'clock at night. The dude never slept, and he just had so much energy. Like he was so sharp, and So I'll take a step back. Like how David and I met. So I'm an entrepreneur in Kansas City, and I'm all about helping entrepreneurs. So if an entrepreneur reaches out to me, hey, Davion, we need X, and I have it, or I can talk them through a situation, I'm always open to it because, I'm very fortunate to have people who have done that for me, and I take that to heart, right? And just wanted to pay it forward. And as part of that, I have a friend who was running the Techstars cohort here in town, actually through Sprint, and he asked me to be a mentor. So I decided, yeah, I'll be a mentor. And as part of that mentor, when we were raising funding, they said, hey, if you're a mentor, you should talk to Techstars. So we went through the process and talked to Techstars, just really reputable firm, not necessarily focused on sports, but had an appreciation for what we're doing technology-wise. And I remember them saying, look, half of us love this, half of us don't really worry about sports, and we have this thing that we got to be unanimous. So I was like, you know what, I get it. They said, however, we want to introduce you to a firm out in New York, Greg Croft. So I get on the phone with Greg Croft, and the gentleman said, this is interesting. We'd like you to speak to David. I'm like, David who? It's like David Stern. I'm like, the commish? He's like, yeah, he's one of our interns. I'm like, one of your interns? Okay, that's cool. And you've heard David before. He's like, yeah, in his business card, he actually put intern on there.
Right.
So I remember it was Toronto All-Star Weekend, and it was the first All-Star that he wasn't there, but he set up a call with me. All I remember is Toronto was like really, really cold, the worst. And he set up a call with me that Friday evening at 4. So I got on the phone with him, stepped out, I'm in the hallway, and we're talking, and he's literally just like punching me in the mouth, grilling me. And if you know David, that's his style, right? Like the first thing he says to you is like, it's going to either be derogatory or, about your mama, or, I mean, I'm just kidding, but it's that bad. Like his whole goal was to like, boom, in the mouth. Are you still standing? Okay, we can work now. So literally, we went at it. We went at it, and I'm one who I don't really care who it is. I'm not backing down, right? If I believe in something, I'm going to tell you how I feel, and if you can't respect that, then David like appreciated that.
Right.
So that set it off. So at the end, he said, "Okay, that's all. I like you. Come see me in New York." And that was it. And then hung up. So I'm like, okay, that was kind of strange how we closed that off. But like after just going at me. So then I sent him a note thanking him. He added Linda, who was his assistant for a long period of time, just amazing. And I think it was either next week or the week after we went up and see him in New York, and he was like, David liked the opportunity of being able to touch the game without really being in his commissioner role. And that's where our relationship started. And, he was just very instrumental in how we thought about it. He really challenged us. Like he really challenged me to be great, to be better. I wouldn't say be great because I don't know if we're great yet, but we're aspiring to be great and to be better, and really push me and us to like think about stuff differently, think about it at a different level. Like he was, I've been around a lot of people who are smart and intelligent, but David could see around like 3 or 4 corners, like I had never seen in my life. Like there are things that even come into pass and doing now that, is part of our discussions. And, we built a really cool relationship, texting all the time, talking all the time. Every time he see me, he's like, "Give me a hug, big guy." And, I got really, really close with him. And, he was just very instrumental in how we've gotten here. And so that was really sad for me. It was really rough for me. Even my son was like, my son is 6, but like I remember it was New Year's Day and I'd already gotten the news, know what was going on. But my son saw it on TV and I was like, "Daddy," because like literally I'd be on the phone with David, with my son in the car, and he'd say hi, or he's like, "Daddy, your friend David passed away." And so that was just really tough, especially going through things like you're going through now, where the sports world is so impacted. And I mean, he was just such a genius as it relates to dealing with just crises and crucial situations. If you think about everything this man made the NBA, what it is today, right? And if you think about everything that he had to deal with, from, the fights to, people rebelling on the dress codes to, he dealt with so many different situations. And, I just feel I feel very, very fortunate and blessed that I got to get that close with him. And, so I'm very grateful. Very, very, very grateful.
Well, look, I think, one of the first times I got to meet him was because of you, and because of Bruce and because of ShotTracker. And, when we became an investor with you, he had already been an investor and was an advisor. And that when he spoke at our, and I got the opportunity to interview him at our 76 Capital Innovation Conference in November.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm up there, I'm defending you. He's like killing ShotTracker in you, and in a loving David way. But I was like, wait a second, these guys are.
It's funny because after that, I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, "What?" I was like, "Man, people think you hate me." He's like, "Come on, that's how I show my affection. They know that." I'm like, "No, they don't. They don't know our relationship." So I literally walking into the car and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing, really?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it. They know that's how I show my affection." I'm like, "They don't, but it's okay. It's fine. It's still good." But yeah, no, it's funny because people came to me like, "Dude, are you okay?" I'm like, "Look, if he's not like punching you in the gut, he doesn't like you." That's just how he is. And he was amazing, man. He was great.
Yeah. So if David were here today, and we're in the middle of this really terrible coronavirus pandemic that's going on, and sports are shuttered right now. We all know sports will be back.
Yeah.
What do you think David would say right now?
The funny thing, he'd be like, "You know what? You're effed." That's what he would say. That's what David would say to me. He's like, "You're effed." And then he'd be like, "All right, let's figure this out." I think he would say that, look, this is unprecedented. We know sports is going to come back. And he'd push us to think about ways that we can capitalize on sports and become more revolutionize how sports is consumed. I mean, David was always very, he was already a step ahead of everyone in regards to revolutionizing the game, right? Which is evident based on his history. But, he would tell us to, look, you got good technology. This too shall pass. But, you either need to like tighten up things, restructure things, figure out how you're going to do this, and use this as an opportunity to, to continue to penetrate the market and literally grow your stronghold. It's funny you asked that question because I personally have been in a, what would David Stern do, type of just mindset, because he used to embark so much knowledge on us that, even Bruce was like, what would David do right now? And so we say that very often because it just forces us to get out of where we are today and start thinking about how do we transform ourselves to be a better us and to be great. That was one thing about David. He always knew what buttons to push to be great. And I can't tell you guys a full story, but I actually turned that on him probably a week before he actually went into his coma. And it was one of those situations where I said something to him and he was like, you don't get to say that. That's my role. And it was one of those things where I was like, well, hey, you tell me, and I wanted him to do something that he was a little hesitant. And he looked at me like, we spent way too much time with you, which is kind of cool to play that back on him.
And the amazing thing is he did it, right? And
yeah.
it was even more, I know, what could you say, right? When then we're in New York at Radio City for this unbelievable memorial that the NBA and Adam Silver and many others put on for him. And that little thing that you pushed him on got finalized that week. So
yeah.
Pretty amazing. And, you have amazing stories and just so glad to have you on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And you also have been able to get someone else who was incredibly impacted by David, almost another one of David's sons, having Magic Johnson involved with ShotTracker. How did that happen?
Well, so Magic.
Irvin. I like to call him Irvin, right? That's what.
Yeah, Irvin. The relationship with Irvin spanned from, a friend of mine who made an intro to his director of investments. And he got really excited about what we're doing. And it was one of those things where, our technology is really powerful, but until you like see it live, you almost don't get it until you're like, whoa, I just shot and that ball just went through the hoop and nobody did anything. And it just recorded here all in real time. And whoa, there's the dot, right, of where I shot from. So I think that probably was the same for you, right? You got it. But when you came into our facility and you guys were just shooting around, it just changed the whole like, wow, this is real. And
I had to bring my brother and all his friends. We were in Kansas City for an Eagles game.
Yeah.
And that was, but to this day, that whole group of guys are they were mesmerized because they're shooting and they're looking on the iPad and they're like, oh my God. Like
absolutely. Yeah. So we had that situation and, Irvin, Magic, him and his director of investments, they were in Chicago. And as you're in the Midwest already, you got to go out West. And he came in and we set up a scrimmage. I have, I call him my little brother, but he's a close family friend who plays for Villanova. And I remember he was 15 at the time. And I called his mom and said, look, pull him out of school. Don't tell him anything. And literally what we do in our offices, we have, 10,000 square feet. It's a big old warehouse, but you have 5,000 is office. And then another 5,000 is a basketball court. And so we literally brought him in. So could you imagine like people walking into hoop and you look in the conference room and this big 6'8" dude is there in like a purple and black sweatsuit. And they're like, what? It's like a double take, So he came to the offices, saw what we were doing. And when he left and he saw it live, he was like, wow, I want to be involved. And, he's been incredible. He's been an incredible partner. He's just such a great dude. And him and David's bond, like if you think about how they revolutionized, like just the perception around HIV and AIDS and that type of stuff. They did that together, and it was so cool to see, to hear him speak at David's memorial.
Yeah.
It was just an incredible time, man, with incredible people. So I feel, as I said, man, the word I always use is blessed, because if you'd have told me this kid from Trinidad, that was gonna get a full scholarship, come to the US, and then have, I mean, I started to play basketball, like I remember, because of Magic and Michael Jordan, right? Like those are the two guys that I looked at. I used to watch. I mean, we didn't get a ton of games in Trinidad, but I would beg my parents to stay up late just to watch that game. I would trade in my Friday night to be able to watch the game. And that's one of the reasons why I started to play basketball, and to think that I'm able to, have a relationship with those guys again. It's a blessing. I'm very, very fortunate.
That's incredible. It's incredible again, and that's one of the things I think that I'd love to. A couple more questions. I know we're running a little long on. I got to get back to your kids, but
Right.
your wife's going to be going crazy. But real quick, I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
I love to hear how you've been able to develop these relationships. And, I think that I'd love to hear, maybe you have some tips or some strategies as to how you've been able to do this, because you truly, you say Davion in the sports industry, and you don't have to, you're like a one name guy, which is really impressive. And as a businessman, right? As a true businessman in the sports industry. And it's one of the things that we, truly believe at 76 Capital, that the opportunity is the biggest industry in the United States over the next 10 years will be the sports industry. And, people like you are the leaders of that. And so how did you do that?
Wow, I'm almost blushing. So, I mean, for me, I don't necessarily, I think about it about, one, I mean, just being authentic, right? So, with me, I mean, you get to say me, whether you're, on camera or not, right? I'm going to try to have fun, and I try to be good with people. So I try to be really authentic, and just build relationships based on that. And, I'm not afraid to go shake somebody's hand, intro, get to know them. If you get that opportunity, you have to take it. The thing about it is I also try I try to think about it from their perspective, because most times when you walk up to people, the first thing you think is, what do you want, right?
Right.
And some people approach it like, hey, it's about me. And I try to not necessarily make it about me. Indirectly, you have something that you're trying to accomplish, right? So you have to find that balance. The other thing is that if I can be helpful, I will be helpful to anyone, right? Whether it's an introduction, or if there's something. I mean, there's things that, Magic's and Irvin's and his team has reached out to me like, hey, Davion, do you have a contact here? Absolutely. So I think that, I mean, I try to reciprocate the relationship, because I think that that's really powerful. And I don't try to reciprocate it because, I'm gonna call on you for something, right? It all works out, and so I try to, if I can do right by people, I'll try to do that. If I can lift people up, I'll try to do that. I think those are important things. And, if you can have that demeanor, I mean, I think you end up starting to attract people. And, look, I appreciate you calling me a leader. I feel like, I have been blessed to learn from some amazing people, like just getting, firsthand slaps from David Stern in regards to, hey, David, I got the situation. How do I handle it? So, I mean, in my little way, I also try to pay that forward, which, resonates well. And then just try to work with integrity. I mean, that's a big piece about it, right? Like, just really try to work with integrity, and, build those relationships, interact, try to do right by people.
Yeah. Well, look, that's what it's all about. And that's one of the big things why we are doing these leadership series. We want to hear these, these little incredible nuggets, to be able to, help others to be great, because we believe at 76 Capital that there will be companies like Amazon and Facebook and Google's of the sports industry. Because what do people love to do, right? They want to play sports. They want to go and make their kid the next LeBron or Michael, or Serena Williams, right? And then the third thing is they want to watch sports. I don't know what else other people do. That's
it. I think now we're seeing that, right? Like, mean, people are going crazy to see what is happening with like the NFL draft reinventing them, themselves for, from like a virtual online streaming. We see, I was so excited to see the viewership on the WNBA draft, which, probably hasn't gotten that viewership before. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, you've got like the Okomiki, Shanae and those guys. Now they have 3 sisters in the WNBA. That's unheard of, right? So, I mean, like, look, people are eating up sports. Sports is part of our fabric, part of our DNA, and that's what gets me excited. But sports as we see it historically is going to be very different, going forward. And I think although it's we can look and say it's sad, it's different, but you also have to look at like as a society, there's incredibly smart people that are going to reinvent itself. I mean, a perfect example is, I don't know if you've seen DJ Nice with the Club Quarantine, right? Like that dude did an Instagram live field DJing and had hundreds of thousands of people dancing in their living room.
I know.
Like, and we're going to see all these types of, you're seeing the NBA doing, esports. I mean, look, it's in times of adversity, you're going to have people who sulk about the adversity, and you're going to have people who take the adversity and turn it into innovative solutions to really change the game. Which one are you going to be, right? So, and that's how we have to think about this and use this adversity to get better, get stronger, so that when, the floodgates open, we're out there, we're ready to fight, we're ready to execute.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that really leads me to my final question of our 76 Capital Leadership Series is, what will the future of basketball, what will the future of sports really look like?
Yeah, no, I think that the future of sports is going to be it's a big question, right? Because I'm trying to think, future as in the end of this year, and then like really long-term future. I think that it's we're going to be much more connected. With the evolution of 5G. I mean, look, there's a few things going on in the landscapes that will really change sports, right? So you think about NIL, name, image, and likeness. That's a big topic.
Big deal.
You think about PASPA, that repeal and the proliferation across all the states. You think about 5G, right? So you think about 5G and MEC, so mobile edge computing. Those are 2 things that I think will really impact how we consume information, what we consume, etc. So those are like really, really, really important. And I also think that, UWB, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Apple actually put a UWB chip, which is a technology we use in their mobile devices, which that starts opening up a bunch of opportunities. So when I think about the future of sports, I think about those 5 things that will impact the landscape. We'll be able to bet anywhere, because of the repeal. You're going to see athletes. I mean, it's crazy to see how, it takes someone like Zion Williamson, who went into the NBA or went into college at Duke with millions of followers already. These high school kids are doing that already, right? And now with NIL, they're going to be able to capitalize on that before they even get to college and go to the pros. You think the kid that just went directly to this development league in the G League versus going to college.
Yep.
When I think about all these things, I think that, we're going to be much more connected. The stadium experience is going to be unique post-Corona when we get over that. During Corona, I think, there's going to be an experience in the home that will be a little bit different. So, I mean, I think all these things are going to play a critical role in what sports look like. I think one of the things that we've been talking about a while is like AR and VR. And I think that you're going to see some emergence of, those 2 types of technologies as it relates to sports, because, especially with during Corona, right? Because you may not have fans in the stands, and people are going to want that more live experience. So I think those are the technologies, those are the frameworks, those are the things that are really going to change sports into this next leg of growth. And you're going to see new startups coming in. But I think, at the end of the day, we're going to be a more connected, sport. And the in-stadium and at-home experiences are going to be much more complementary and much more real time as we go forward.
Well, that's an incredible answer. And, and sports will be back. and we're super excited to have had, Davion Ross, the co-founder and president of ShotTracker, on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Davion, thank you so much for taking time out of your night and away from your family to join us on this. It's been fascinating, and myself as well as our whole team at 76 Capital want to wish you a lot of luck. Stay healthy, stay safe, and once again, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
All right, have a great night, everybody.